Formula One is facing a disaster it cannot hide behind technical language anymore. Because Max Verstappen is not just angry. He is warning the sport that the 2027 engine rules could make him quit. And if the most dominant driver of this era walks away while he is still fast enough to win, it will not be because Red Bull built a slow car. It will be because Formula One built a future he no longer wants to drive. That is the nightmare. The current direction pushes the cars toward a 50-50 power split, half combustion, half electric. More energy management. More battery strategy. More systems between the driver and the feeling of pure control. But Verstappen's condition is brutal. Move toward 60-40, give more power back to the combustion side, give more authority back to the driver, or risk losing Max before the sport is ready for life without him. This would not just damage Red Bull. It would expose the International Automobile Federation, split the paddock, shake the driver market, and force every fan to ask one terrifying question. Has Formula One become so advanced that it forgot what racing is supposed to feel like? Because if Verstappen quits in 2027, the biggest story will not be who replaces him. It will be why Formula One ignored the warning signs until its greatest driver chose the exit. Subscribe to the channel. At first, Formula One tried to hide this crisis inside familiar words. Performance, development, balance, adaptation. That is what the paddock always does when a champion starts sounding unhappy. It makes the problem smaller. It turns emotion into engineering. It turns a warning into a setup issue. It tells itself that the next upgrade, the next race, the next clean weekend, will calm everything down. But this time, that explanation is too weak. Because Max Verstappen is not only talking about a slow car. He is talking about a future that may no longer feel worth driving. And that is the difference between a Red Bull problem and a Formula One emergency. A Red Bull problem can be attacked at the factory. More downforce. Less weight. Better stability. More straight-line speed. A wider window where the car works properly. Those are hard problems, but they are normal problems. Formula One has solved them for decades. A Formula One emergency is different. That happens when the most important driver of the era looks at the rulebook, looks at the direction of the sport, and starts asking whether the car still belongs to the driver. That question is much more dangerous than a lap time deficit. Because lap time can return. Trust is harder. And Verstappen's entire career has been built on trust. Not comfort. Not perfection. Trust. He needs to know what the rear of the car is going to do before it fully does it. He needs to feel the brake pedal speak clearly. He needs to open the throttle and believe the power will arrive in a way his instincts can predict. He needs the machine to be difficult, but honest. That is why he has been able to live at the limit for so long. Other drivers can produce one extraordinary lap. Verstappen's weapon is that he can repeat the danger. Again, and again, and again. He takes a violent edge and makes it look controlled. He turns pressure into rhythm. He makes rivals feel like they are running out of air. But that only works when the car gives him a language he can understand. And the fear now is that Formula One's 2027 engine direction may change that language completely. The current concept pushes the cars toward a 50-50 power split. Half combustion power, half electric power. To the outside world, that sounds balanced. It sounds modern. It sounds like progress. It sounds like a sport trying to protect its future. But inside a Formula One cockpit, progress is not judged by how clean it sounds in a meeting. It is judged by how the car feels at 200 miles per hour. And that is where Verstappen's warning becomes so serious. Because when electric power becomes such a huge part of the lap, the driver is no longer only thinking about braking, turning, traction, tires, and attack. He is also thinking about energy. How much he has. When to use it. When to save it. Whether the boost will still be there at the end of the straight. Whether the car will respond the same way in the next corner. That may sound like strategy. But to Verstappen, it appears to feel like interference. Not because he cannot handle complexity. He has handled pressure his entire career. The issue is what kind of complexity Formula One is creating. There is a difference between a car that challenges a driver, and a car that makes him feel like he is managing a system instead of attacking a circuit. That difference is where this entire crisis lives. Imagine running as fast as you can, but your shoes keep changing their grip without warning. Sometimes they help you launch forward. Sometimes they feel heavy. Sometimes they respond instantly. Sometimes they wait just long enough to make your body hesitate. You are still running. But you are no longer free. That is the fear behind the 50-50 direction. A Formula One car can still be fast and still feel wrong. It can still produce huge speed and still feel less natural. It can still look spectacular from the outside while the driver inside feels disconnected from the thing that made racing addictive in the first place. And for Verstappen, that feeling matters more than people think. Because he has never needed an easy car. In fact, some of his greatest performances have come from cars that demanded courage, precision, and aggression. He does not want comfort. He does not want Formula One to become simple. He does not want every race handed to him. What he wants is honesty. A car that tells him the truth. A car he can fight. A car that rewards instinct. A car that still makes the driver feel like the center of the machine. That is why the proposed 60-40 change has become so important. 60% combustion. 40% electric. To casual fans, it may sound like a small adjustment. Just a different number. Just a technical correction. Just one more argument for engineers and rule makers. But in this story, 60-40 is not just a number. It is the rescue line. It means more of the power comes from the combustion side. It means less extreme dependence on electric energy management. It means the car could feel more direct, more responsive, more connected to the driver's right foot. Not old-fashioned. Not backward. Not anti-technology. Just more human. And that is why Verstappen's threat has landed so hard. He is not saying, make Red Bull dominant again. He is saying, make Formula One feel like Formula One. That is a much more powerful argument. Because if he were only demanding victory, the paddock could dismiss it as a champion under pressure. Rivals could say he enjoyed domination when it suited him, and now he does not like the fight. Fans could argue he is simply struggling to adapt. But the moment the argument becomes about the feeling of the car, the entire conversation changes. Now it is about the soul of the sport. People do not watch Formula One because a battery deployment chart is perfect. They watch because a driver brakes later than anyone thought possible. They watch because a car slides at the edge and somehow survives. They watch because, for 1 second, a human being seems to control something that should not be controllable. That is the emotion Formula One sells. And Verstappen is warning that the future may be weakening it. This is what makes the International Automobile Federation's position so dangerous. If it moves toward the 60-40 solution, some manufacturers may feel punished. They may have already invested in the original direction. They may believe they found an advantage in the stronger electric balance. They may argue that Formula One cannot change course because one superstar driver is unhappy. And they would have a point. A championship cannot rewrite its future every time pressure arrives. Rules need stability. Manufacturers need confidence. Engineers need to know the target will not move after years of work. But if the International Automobile Federation refuses to move, the opposite risk is even bigger. It may send the message that Formula One is willing to protect the rulebook, even if the driver experience is warning that something is wrong. That is the trap. Change the rules, and the sport looks like it bent under pressure. Do nothing, and the sport risks losing Max Verstappen. There is no clean answer. Only consequences. And every consequence is huge. For Red Bull, the danger is immediate. The team can talk about upgrades and development, but underneath all of that is one brutal fear. What if Max stops believing? A contract can put a driver in a seat. Belief is what keeps him fully committed. And Red Bull needs Verstappen fully committed, because he is not just another driver in that garage. He is the reference point. The standard. The person who exposes whether the car is genuinely strong or just surviving because of his talent. When Red Bull has a great car, Verstappen turns it into domination. When Red Bull has a flawed car, Verstappen can still drag results from it that make the problem look smaller than it really is. But that has a cost. A driver can carry a car for a weekend. He can carry a difficult season if he believes the pain leads somewhere. But he cannot carry a car he does not trust, under rules he does not enjoy, into a future he does not believe in forever. That is where the threat becomes real. Because Verstappen does not sound trapped by Formula One. Some drivers need the paddock. They need the noise, the lights, the identity, the attention, the feeling of being part of the biggest racing show on earth. Verstappen has always seemed different. He loves racing, but he does not seem addicted to the theater around it. He has other interests, other projects, other ways to compete. He has already won what most drivers spend their lives chasing. That gives him power. Because a driver who can imagine life outside Formula One is a driver the sport cannot easily control. More money may not be enough. More records may not be enough. More fame may not be enough. Even the promise of future championships may not be enough if the car no longer gives him the feeling that makes the sacrifice worth it. And Formula One demands sacrifice. It demands endless travel. It demands family time. It demands risk. It demands training, media, simulator work, sponsor pressure, public judgment, and a calendar that leaves very little space to breathe. A driver accepts all of that because the reward is extraordinary. The feeling of being faster than fear. The feeling of mastering chaos. The feeling of taking a machine to the edge and keeping it there. But if that reward disappears, or becomes buried under energy management and political compromise, the cost starts to look different. That is why this is not just a headline. It is a warning. Verstappen is telling Formula One that the future must still feel worth the price. And now every part of the paddock is caught in the same question. Can the International Automobile Federation adjust the rules without destroying trust from the manufacturers? Can Red Bull give Verstappen a car that restores confidence before his patience runs out? Can Formula One modernize without turning the driver into a manager of systems? Can the sport protect its future without losing the emotion that made people love it? Those questions do not have easy answers. But they now have a deadline. Because if the 60-40 change is approved for 2027, the crisis has a possible escape route. Verstappen can look at the future and see that the sport listened. Red Bull can keep building around him. Formula One can say it corrected the balance before the damage became permanent. But if the change is delayed, blocked, or watered down, every race becomes part of a countdown. Every difficult Red Bull weekend becomes evidence. Every frustrated comment becomes a clue. Every political meeting becomes a possible turning point. And every fan starts asking the same thing. Is Max Verstappen really preparing to quit Formula One? That question alone can poison a season. Because once the greatest driver of the era makes his future conditional, nothing around him feels stable. Red Bull cannot plan with total confidence. Rivals start circling. Sponsors pay attention. The media studies every word. Fans stop watching only the race and start watching his body language. That is what a real crisis looks like. Not noise. Not drama. Uncertainty at the center of the sport. And the most dangerous part is that Verstappen may be right about one thing. Formula One can be modern, advanced, and intelligent, but if the driver no longer feels central, something essential is lost. The machine matters. The technology matters. The regulations matter. But the moment that makes people care is still human. A late brake. A snap of oversteer. A risk that should not work. A driver trusting the car when everyone watching holds their breath. That is racing. That is the feeling Verstappen is fighting for. And if Formula One forgets that, the disaster will not be one bad engine rule. It will be the day its greatest driver decides the future is not worth driving into.